Yes.
Clap my hands. You can clap your hands. There you go. I can sync it just in case an emergency.
Yeah, very smart. Not your first rodeo.
Not my first rodeo. All right. I'm really excited to talk to you. I've been looking into some of the stuff you've done. Obviously, it's been amazing. And I've got a lot of stuff to talk about. But before we get into it, let's talk about your origin story. I think it's pretty interesting. How did this all start for you?
Yeah, the career of being a writer, director. Honestly, I always say that it dates back to just my culture. I'm Nigerian, and even though I was raised in Texas, I come from a very deep Nigerian family, and Nigerians are storytellers. It's a West African culture, the griot culture. We tell stories. Also, if you've ever received a 409 letter, you know we tell stories. Right. It's very deeply in the Nigerian culture. But I when I was a child, I had both of my parents are immigrants, and my mom, English was not her native language. My mom didn't grow up speaking English. And so we would watch TV in the evenings, and my dad would speak English in the house to my brothers and me, and we would watch these comedy shows, and my brothers and I would always be explaining the jokes to our parents.
Were you born in Nigeria?
No, I actually was born in North Texas. I was born in Plano, Texas.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So we would be explaining the jokes to my parents. Here is why Frasier is funny. Here is why. And I still remember my dad didn't let us watch The Simpsons because Bart said, "Eat my shorts." And he was like, "Why would he eat shorts? This is rude. He's crass." There are just so many things we weren't allowed to watch because my parents didn't understand. So I think just as a child, I was so into joke structure and how comedy worked.
Yep.
And I also didn't quite get that TV was fictional. When I would see shows that had real people in them, I thought they were documentaries. I thought Boy Meets World was a show where they're following a kid around to school. And I'm like, they could follow me and my friends. Why are they following him? And so it wasn't until later, middle school or high school, when friends were like, "Oh no, all those names at the beginning, those are the writers of the show. They wrote the episode." And I was like, "For these kids?" And I was it just took me, I don't know why. I was slow, I don't know. But it took me a while to kind of understand how scripted TV worked, that these were all actors, that were performing, and that they did takes and all of that, because I come from completely outside of the industry. And I really loved writing as a child. I was always really creative. I was in marching band. I played the flute for 12 years. Loved music and performance in general, but I didn't take my first screenwriting class until my junior year in college, and that's when something kind of clicked for me.
What did you go into college wanting to do?
Well, what I told my parents I wanted to do was become a lawyer, maybe. And by the time I had hit my senior year, they're like, "We have seen 0 LSATs. What is happening?" And I had to kind of come clean and say, I want to do something with culture. I want to do something creative.
Is there pressure from a lot of immigrant parents tend to say you got to become a doctor or a lawyer or
or a disappointment. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a joke that one of my favorite comedians, Yvonne Orji, who is on Insecure, she always says, "You're a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or a disappointment."
Right.
And I went to Stanford. So my parents were like, "Here we go." They're so excited.
Right.
And I was like, "I think I want to tell stories for a living." And they're like, "What?"
Yeah.
Yeah. But that screenwriting class really unlocked something for me. And I realized screenwriting is both right brain and left brain. It's analytical, but it's creative. It kind of matched my flow.
Yeah.
I'm a child of immigrants. I'm the only girl, which means second mom. And also I'm a double Virgo. I love the details and all of it. I just was really obsessed with screenwriting. And as an introvert and a kid who always felt like an outsider, I was a big people watcher as a child. And so I just was seeing characters everywhere. I was seeing stories everywhere. And I wanted to write that. What surprised you?
I know you said you watched a lot of TV, and I watched a lot of TV and television shows. My son loves Frasier. It's his favorite show.
I love Frasier.
But he was at the age of 10, it's his favorite show.
Yeah,
which is
I love
great.
that.
But there is a formula to some of these things, which was interesting. And when you took your screenwriters class, were you surprised to sort of see here's the formula to how that works, the man behind the curtain?
Yeah, 100%. Because I was 10 when I was watching Frasier, and I was like, "This is a phenomenal show. How did they do it?" And then when you realize there's a structure to it and it's all learned, there's something where you're like, "Oh, it's not a mystery." like people just learned how to do it. I too can learn how to do it, you know?
Right.
And that's what that screenwriting class revealed to me. It's like, oh, a minute of a screenplay is a minute of on-screen content. Like,
Yeah.
you know, a scene has a button. There's a rule of threes. Like
Right.
hard consonants are funny. Like
Yeah.
there are just certain rules. Comedy of opposites, rich son, poor dad, or
Right.
working class dad, you
Yeah.
know? There are certain things that are just rules in comedy. And
Yeah.
once you learn them, you just play with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think it's amazing to sort of think about that because I think it actually transfers to almost everything, right? And our like painting has juxtapositions of
Yep.
colors and complementary
Yep.
colors and all those
Yeah.
other things. So, so you took that class. What year was that? Was that your first year or second year?
No, it was my junior
Oh,
year.
junior year.
It actually, I think, was spring quarter of my junior year.
Okay.
And I had done this kind of like Stanford and Hollywood week-long spring break trip. And I was just like, oh no, I'm in the wrong major. Like I was an American Studies major and a French minor because I'd studied abroad.
Okay.
And I was like, oh no. And they had just started a film major and I was considering switching. And one of the alums on the trip, I'll never forget, and she doesn't know how she impacted me, but her name was Danielle Lurie. And she was like, if you want to make films, you don't need to go to film school. Major in what you want to make films about.
Right.
Because anyone can pick up a camera. You learn by doing, but you can't learn a voice, you know?
Sure.
Or once you're in the world, that's the voice you have. You have to
Right.
study something to learn a voice.
Yep.
And to cultivate a voice. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to sign up for a 5th year at this expensive school. I was like, I'm going to graduate. I majored in American Studies. That's the study of culture
Sure.
and history and communication.
I'm sure it's still useful.
Which is what TV is.
Yes, of course.
So in this weird way, I'm doing the thing that I went to school
Yep.
for, which is really strange to say. Now, in terms of like actually getting the hours of writing, I opted to go to grad school. Like after I graduated from Stanford, I moved abroad for a while. I was working in for this nonprofit in Paris, just outside of Paris, France. And then I moved to Paris and started working for a production company that did short films and commercials. And there was kind of a cap to how far I could move up because I was a foreigner, you know, and I just realized I was like, I'm making this harder for myself. I love France so much, but I was like, I'm making it harder for myself. I should just go to LA. You know, I can work legally there.
Right.
And while I was in LA, I got a job in reality TV. Reality TV is not real. It's all fake stories.
Sure.
So I was coming up with stories for these reality shows. And around that point in my journey was when a friend was like, you seem really committed to writing. Maybe you should try grad school.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, who's going to pay for that? And he said, the government.
Oh, okay.
So I ended up going.
Where did you go?
I went to UCLA.
Okay.
Yeah, so I went to UCLA for grad school for a couple years and did the TV track. And in my program, there were like 25 students in the program. There were 10 who wanted to do television, and most of them wanted to do drama. And here I was, like, I wanted to tell like vagina jokes and like, you know, and I was just like, I want to make fun of things. And
Yep.
so I felt like kind of not a film school kid, but it really got those 10,000 hours, you know, that, what's his name? Malcolm Gladwell. It was like, you get those 10,000 hours to become an expert at something.
Anything, yeah.
And that's what film school did for me. So,
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so how did that company, did it come to fruition? Did it basically get you your first job?
yeah, more or less. So, when I left school, I will say like the 10,000 hours theory, I strongly believe it. And UCLA was very much like a quantity leads to quality type of education. And I did the TV and the film program simultaneously. So I was writing a feature and a TV script every quarter.
Okay.
Not a lot of sleep. I was just like, I'm going to get good at this. Like I was very committed.
Sure.
And when I graduated, I was burnt out because grad school is exhausting, and I kind of put all this pressure on myself to do almost like double the work. So I was really burnt out, but I happened to submit one of my screenplays to a fellowship that gave like $20,000. The grand prize was $20,000. And the crazy thing was like, I had to apply some of it to my education, and then I kind of was like, how much can I live off of? How long until I need to get a job? And so I was living off of contest winnings and writing. Wow. And during that time, it was about 6 months that I was unemployed and just writing, because most of the things I wrote in grad school were not good. You know, it's like you're getting your 10,000 hours out.
Right.
But by the time that period was over, it was like December of, I want to say it was maybe 2011 or something, where I was sort of like, okay, I'm about to run out of money. I need to get a job. But now I have a portfolio, now I have a couple scripts that I can show people, and I've also honed the muscle of writing quickly.
Sure.
So I could write a spec script in 2 weeks, and so I was kind of like, okay, I think I'm ready to get a job. And so I had some friends who worked at agencies and management companies. I sent them my resume and started applying around and interviewing. And that was how I got my first assistant job.
Okay. So what was your first job at? What was your first show?
Yeah, I was working for Hillary Winston, who's an amazing showrunner, on a show that unfortunately didn't go, called Happy Valley.
Okay.
But that show, it was great. Like, she let me into every part of the process. I found out how she chose new writers to hire. I started realizing, they have an internet presence, or they've come from a program, or they went to grad school, or they know somebody, or they've been an assistant before. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do all of those things.
Right.
I want to make sure I'm someone who's undeniable, because especially as a Black woman, they want to have a reason to say no. They're like, I don't know if you're qualified. There's something about you that feels like you might not fit in here. So I was like, okay, I want to make sure I've covered all my bases so no one can tell me no. Right. And from there, when her show didn't get picked up, she ended up recommending me to the showrunner of Happy Endings, which was a hit comedy on ABC run by Jonathan Groff, and he hired me to be his assistant. Okay. And I worked on that show for a year, and then from there I got my first staff job on the Michael J. Fox show.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a journey.
Yeah.
A lot of hard work, but I got there.
Amazing. Okay, so you were then committed. You're on TV. You were for TV. Who were some of the mentors for you? Like, who are the ones that really sort of helped you out through that process? Yeah,
I would say in reality, I think there are two things that I really like to highlight about mentorship. There's mentors and there are advocates. Mentors are people who are like, let me show you the ropes, kid. Yeah. And advocates are people who are talking about you when you're not in the room, who are saying good things about you when you're not there. And I will say, I think because I came across as quite competent and accomplished and double Virgo child of immigrants. I didn't receive a ton of mentorship, but I did receive a lot of advocacy. And it was something that I was kind of like, I don't have this upper level writer that I'm showing my scripts to and being like, help me, is this good? Right. That wasn't happening a ton for me, but I was being spoken about when I wasn't around. So I would take meetings, staff meetings, and people would say, I've heard about you from so many people. I've heard about you from this writer and this writer and this writer.
Interesting.
And that was it was wonderful to find that out because I wasn't sure where I measured up. But I think that also in Hollywood, there's something that I don't know what to call it. Maybe it's almost like quiet mentorship where no one's actually cracking open a script and being like, here's where you put this joke, but they're letting you be in the room while they're doing their work. Yes. So I very often was staying after work and watching amazing writers break their pilots and come up with their stories and take notes calls. Right. And sometimes the writers would say be on this notes call and take notes for us. And I'd get to hear how they received the notes, how they interpreted the notes. Yep. So I was learning, it was this tacit mentorship. It wasn't I was so much asking questions that they were answering, but I was absorbing. Sure. And that was truly the amazing part of being in a writer's room before you're a writer was being just so available to learn all of that. And even as a staff writer, I realized the pressure wasn't on me to save the show. Right. So I could just watch other people save it and learn. So that was sort of how mentorship worked for me. My first showrunner, not only Jonathan Groff and Hillary Winston were both amazing, but after them on the Michael J. Fox show was Sam Laybourne, who was an amazing showrunner and so open and warm and so very, very generous with showing his process and empowering me to run set. Even as a staff writer, I produced 2 episodes of TV, which is kind of unheard of as a staff writer. Right. But those were really the people. And then Wendy Calhoun was another writer who I deeply respect, she had an independent writer's room because she was on a deal, and I sat in and took notes for her a number of times, and I learned so much about that process as well. So these were people who, it was years later that I was like, they really were kind of mentoring me, but not in the ways that you think a mentor operates.
I know what you mean by indirect mentor.
Yeah, exactly. It was like an indirect mentorship.
So just sit behind and watch things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is really interesting. But obviously, you've done some amazing shows and you've done some incredible work. So do you feel that there are people behind you that are watching you doing this kind of stuff? Are you paying it forward in that way?
100%. I feel I feel like because I had so much access early in my career, I wanted to give that to other people. So I used to be someone who anyone would email and be like, can I pick your brain? And I'd be like, yeah, let's have a coffee. And I used to do that a lot.
Yep.
I kind of got burnt out on the coffees. And then I was like, oh, if I keep on having all these one-off coffees, I don't have time to do the thing that makes them want to have a coffee with me.
Right.
I don't have the time to write because I'm always meeting up with people and talking about writing.
Right. And one coffee doesn't necessarily solve everything.
No. And it's something that you don't know when you're starting out, that someone can only show you their path. They can't show you yours.
Right.
So often people are like, how did you break in? And I'm saying, but there are these pathways that are not available to them in the same ways they were to me. Like I also worked in web series. Like I wrote for a very popular web series called Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl. I started a couple web series of my own. And those were things that at the time it was like the naissance of YouTube. So eyes were there all the time.
Yeah.
So it was very easy, not easy. It was not as difficult to have people notice your show.
Sure.
So things have just changed. But what I have done in more recent years, because that spirit of mentorship is very strongly put in me, just a product of good education, I think, and being like, I want other people to be well educated. I ended up starting a mentorship program called Tribe.
Yeah.
And the way that started was really because I was doing all of these one-off coffees before the pandemic and was getting a little overwhelmed with being reached out to and reaching out to people and following up with people. And I was starting to keep like a grid of mentees. And I was like, this is becoming a lot. Like, how do I make this easier on myself and also more productive to them? And then the pandemic hit and the world shut down and we were all in the house. And then in the summer of 2020 came, the racial upheaval of the murder of George Floyd. And a lot of Black creatives were reaching out to me being like, should I still be doing this? Like, do my stories even matter if this is what is happening in the streets of America? And I realized, I want these people to meet each other. They can't just know me because
and 100% they're more relevant than ever.
Yes, 100% more relevant than ever. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that the burden of that pain is lessened when you have community to share it with and to exercise it with you, exorcise it with you, get it out of you. And so I started Tribe in the pandemic and really brought together a group of like writers that I was independently mentoring and said, what if we built something together? What if we start doing monthly panels? What are the things you feel like you're missing in your writing education, the independent education you've been doing? How can I support you? And I found that there was really a mix of what I call hard skills and soft skills. Okay. Hard skills are how do I write an outline? Soft skills are how do I deal with narcissists? Both are necessary in Hollywood. Yep. So I started this program where we were kind of toggling back and forth between the two. We would do a session on a hard skill, like here's how I structure a rewrite on a script. Then we do a session on a soft skill, like here's how I take a notes call. And we'd go back and forth, and through that process, thankfully, I was under a deal at HBO and got to renew my deal and hired an executive. And that executive and I decided, let's start reading their material. Let's see what we can produce out of this group of writers. Mm-hmm. We chose 3 scripts that we really loved. And of them, of those 3, decided, can we make proof of concept short films for these scripts? Okay. So that we can at least put them before Hollywood and say, like, here's product of these great writers that y'all don't know yet, that we know and we're investing in. Right. And they come with our stamp of approval. Do you want to get to know them? So 2 of them I've self-funded. And the third one, we need funding. The strike hit. I need funding. Right. So we all need funding. Writers need to be paid. Yeah. But I self-funded these films. So that's how I've continued to give back, is through this program, through the short film initiative, and by continuing to pour into the writers that I've gotten to know over the years and really build a network that hopefully will continue to change Hollywood.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's almost like you started your own sort of small school, right? In
a little bit.
Which is great, because you took all these things you learned and you said, okay, instead of trying to help people one-on-one, let's help each other. Yeah.
It shares the burden, you know?
Sure.
Because it is difficult to be everything to one person.
Yep.
And it also, I think, the only way that this industry changes is by investing in compassionate creatives of color and compassionate creatives in general. And I say compassionate instead of passion because a lot of people have passion, but a lot of people are passionate and awful to other people. They're passionate about their art and then they take it out on the people they work for. Sure. And I say compassionate because I want artists who care about people as much as the art. And that is not you're either a compassionate person or you're not. So I always think of that adage, like you can't teach people to be good to people. It has to be something you want to do. So for me, with my writing program, I am really intentional about selecting writers who have that compassionate streak in them already. And I'm like, you just might need a little more community or might need a little more hard skills training or might need a little more soft skills training, but you're already compassionate. So let's give you that last little alley-oop that starts your career.
Right.
And I hope to get to keep doing that even after the strike ends. That's the goal.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested actually, I'm interested in your position on obviously Hollywood is changing and we can talk about the strike if you want to, but I'm more interested I have a feeling that Hollywood is going to be a very different place.
Yeah.
It needs to be.
It has to be.
It needs a complete shake up of the Etch-a-Sketch, right?
Yeah,
What are your thoughts? What does the new Hollywood look like to you? Where do you see it?
I mean, I don't know if I have the answer. But
what would you like it to look like?
What I would like it to look like is a refocus on art. I think what we're seeing right now, because of all of this vertical integration and the, because the FinCEN laws in the 90s have been taken away, and now all of these companies are becoming like these behemoths that price fix and change how consumers.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be they had to make a law to separate theaters from studios.
Exactly. Yeah. And that law doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
And they literally, the last round of FinCEN, I believe, was, I don't know the word, I want to say like obliterated, but that sounds so big, but was taken away during the pandemic. They were like, hey, America, do you mind if we get rid of this? No? Okay, it's gone. Right. And I'm like, but we were all going through it with a capital IT, that no one was paying attention. And so now there's no one, the creative core of Hollywood has shifted. And now it's like, what does Wall Street think? What do the investors say? What does the board think? Will it sell overseas? Does it, is it marketable? Does the algorithm say, And I'm like, what happened to the creative core of like, this story moves me and we're going to take a chance.
Sure.
Like, let's take a chance because most things fail. Most businesses fail. Most restaurants fail. Most startups fail. Most things fail. But somebody has to take a chance. And Hollywood used to subsist on a chance being on creativity, a gut feeling that told me this would work. Now, it was flawed, right?
Sure.
Because there were a monochrome group of gentlemen who ran Hollywood.
Yeah.
So it was flawed.
People who would pick scripts were people who actually knew if it was going to work or not a lawyer.
Yes, not an algorithm.
Right.
Yep. And so I'm not I think that AI is here to stay. It's already here, so I'm not. We're going to
get into AI. Let's because I definitely want to talk to you about that for a little bit. But I do want to I want to talk before we get into the AI part of it. I do want to think about self-distribution. Like, what do you think about self-distribution? You'd already mentioned putting stuff on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Now, YouTube is becoming a studio much faster than anything else. And it's much more in your own control of that system. What do you think about that?
Well, the thing that's crazy is YouTube. Remember what YouTube Red? Like when they were like, we're going to get into TV too.
Didn't work.
No, here's the thing. I wonder, did it not work or did they realize they're making more money not doing that?
Because this is more expensive to do that.
Yes. And
why are we doing this? Everyone else is doing it for us, right?
Yes. I'm like, wait, cat videos make more money than a set in Calabasas with 12 actors, one of whom is hungover. Like, it's like we can make more money just putting your shit back out there.
Right. But there's some really good stuff on YouTube.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And so to me, it's like the fact that Amazon and Apple were like, we'd like to play TV, to me is like very frustrating because I'm like, you don't need this to be a thriving business, but you came in here and fucked it up for all of us.
Sure.
But then here's YouTube that is like, oh, we could have done that. And we're like, nah. And I'm like, I respect that. I'm like, yes, that they're like, nah, never mind. We're not gonna do that.
Right.
It sucks for the people who had development on YouTube Red and friends who were execs there. But,
Sure.
But going back to the idea that there is so much money in making quality entrusting individual creatives to make quality content for YouTube,
Right.
that has been very lucrative for Google.
Yeah.
And when you see the numbers change, the strike happened, and more people did not turn on Paramount Plus or Netflix and say, let me see what's in the deep hallways of Netflix. No, people were like, okay, let me cancel my subscription and watch Get Ready With Me videos on YouTube and TikTok.
Right.
A TikTok viewership, I think the statistic has gone up 70% since the strike.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, legacy studios, get back in here if you want to have a future at all, because you're losing to TikTok.
But I think what's also interesting is that it's such a perfect storm in a way, because you have the studios were doing the same thing over and over again. Might as well have been written by an AI. All the superhero films, like
Dr.
Marvel
Strange.
fatigue. Marvel fatigue was happening big time, right?
In the multiverse of Spider-Man.
And then the pandemic happened, and then no one went to the theaters, right, for a long time. And then I just think it's just then the strike happens, and I think that there's going to be something that just needs to shift, right? And it happened in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
Where the writers basically said, or the studio said, I guess people don't want to watch Westerns anymore.
Yeah.
And that led to Easy Rider, right? And that led to The Godfather and to Taxi Driver. So is there going to be, my theory is that Everything Everywhere All at Once is the Taxi Driver or is the Easy Rider of today.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like the people that are like, let's figure out how to make this thing happen on our own. Yeah. And then we'll do that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I want that to be right. I do think that film is still extremely expensive. And even though we can talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once and how they quote unquote filmed it on their own, let's not belie the fact that the Daniels were extremely successful commercial directors for a very long time. So it's like they had the resources.
But they knew how to do it.
They knew how to do it. And so I'm like, I think it's incredible what they did. I fucking love that movie. I think it's so, I remember watching it and just being like, what did I just see? Yeah. And to see something purely original again was so exciting. Yep. And it did cost a pretty penny. But I am here wondering, in a world where we have virtual production studios and green screen is now entirely dated concept, maybe there's a world in which we can see more things of scale and scope at a smaller price tag, at a lower price tag.
Yes, eventually. Yeah. It's, everything starts off expensive and gets cheaper over time. Yeah. New technology, more specifically. Yeah, of course. Interesting. I'm actually working on virtual production technology myself. That's cool. So my feeling that's exciting about virtual production technology is that directors and filmmakers, as you're aware, must have been so frustrated when they shoot something all on green screen and say, good luck, we'll see it in 9 months. That's horrible for a filmmaker. To be able to put it on screen and then it's on the actual screen itself, you have direct feedback. Then that idea of I hate CGI comes, it's my CGI. I have control over this. It's my content. So I'm hoping that we get to put filmmaking back in the power of filmmakers.
I hope so. I mean, I wouldn't say that the Marvel movies are proving that, because a lot of I heard a joke.
I have a feeling they just put really good named directors in it, and then they don't really give them any control over what they're doing.
Yeah. I've heard a few jokes about how Marvel movies are made and the length of the scripts. It's just there's just a lot to be said about how much is constructed in post. Yeah. And that, but I think
out of the hands of the filmmakers.
Right. And so what I'd love is a return to filmmaking. And the Daniels have shown that can happen. Yes. And so has Greta Gerwig. And has Christopher Nolan. Sure. They've shown that when you actually believe in filmmaking, audiences will show up.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to go from the full gamut of those things because this summer was a very interesting like back to the movies
Yeah.
summer, right?
Yeah.
And you have things, like Barbie or Everything Everywhere, obviously, but
Yeah.
Barbie is in really interesting way how that just
Right.
culturally became a phenomenon, not
Yeah.
expected, right?
Not
Obviously,
expected.
Nolan, they worked in pair, which was crazy
Right,
to have
right.
Oppenheimer that way. But then you also look at Avatar, which cost $1 bazillion, but still was a great film. So
And
you
made
can have all
so much money.
and so you can have it. Doesn't mean that you have to make it cheaper to make it better. You just have to
Yeah.
make a good movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think that, like, even though, the argument can be made that all three of those movies are kind of based on IP at this point, because Avatar is past Avatar,
Sure.
Barbie is Mattel, and Oppenheimer is based on the real life of J.
Right,
Oppenheimer.
sure.
But they were all crafted by filmmakers who put their own spin.
Yeah.
And to me, when I saw Barbie, I was like,
Yeah,
this
that's
is
not
a
the Barbie.
Greta,
Yeah, that's not the Barbie
this
film.
is a Greta Gerwig movie that happens to have a doll in it. You
Yeah.
know, I'm like, that was what was amazing is, like, I know that the layperson isn't over here being like, oh, Greta Gerwig, I want to see that movie. Most people are like, Barbie, I want to see Barbie.
Yeah.
But still, the conversation, the cultural conversation is because of how Barbie was interpreted
Yes.
by this filmmaker.
Right. And how she, honestly, having seen it a couple times now with my daughter, how she balances the corporate. I'm sure those meetings must have been so hard.
Oh my God.
The corporate meetings with Mattel. Can you imagine?
God. I heard a story. It was such a great story because there's a part in the movie, spoiler, there's a part in the movie, you should have seen it, where the young girl like talks down to Barbie and is like, you are the problem with society and you shouldn't have friends and you're a fascist and whatever. And she says all these horrible things to Barbie.
Sure.
And Mattel, apparently in this article I read, were very upset about that. They were like, we can't have that. And Greta was like, we're shooting it tomorrow. And they sent a Mattel like exec all the way to set to like show up and be like, you can't shoot this.
Right.
And then he showed up and they were shooting it. And you see this girl saying this to Margot Robbie, and Margot Robbie just like drooping and drooping and drooping and getting sad. And the exec in the article was like, I was embarrassed that I tried to stop it because when I saw how it worked,
What it was supposed to be.
I realized that it was a necessary conversation.
That's amazing.
And I'm like, wow, how great to be the first Mattel movie.
Right.
Because none of the other ones are going to work this way.
No, you're not. Yeah, you're not.
Because now they're like, the world wants Mattel movies. And I'm like, wrong lesson.
Yeah.
The world wants Greta Gerwig movies. The world wants filmmaker movies. The world wants original stories. Please take the correct lesson from this.
Well, actually, what will be interesting is if they don't necessarily take the right, and they're like, oh, we were wrong, I don't know.
I would love that. Instead, they're going to go, oh, the person we hired wasn't right.
Or we released on March, which we should never
Which
done.
we never should have done. That's our bad,
It's like these I hear you.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. But anyway, it's really, really interesting. Now, I overheard you, I hate to say, I overheard you this morning talking about AI with someone at breakfast, and I was about to jump into this. I was like, no, I'm going to save it for the podcast. So I have been, my podcast deals with all kinds of stuff creative. Obviously, we don't just talk about CG, but we do talk a lot about computer graphics in what I do. And there's a lot of concept artists out there that I talk to. A lot of them actually old THU alumni who I love dearly. But there's a lot of concern about how AI is hurting them as artists, how it's not, some of them are worried about them scraping their art, et cetera, specifically because of the generative stuff that's going on. How, from a writer's perspective, what are the how is the similarities between those conversations happening in writer circles right now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say as it relates to the strike, I'll speak to that first, that I didn't realize when we were going into the strike that AI was going to be such a huge concern. It wasn't until we heard what the response was from the AMPTP that a lot of us writers realized, oh, this is a strike about technology. Like, a lot of us didn't know. And it felt like, it'll be a strike about residuals again. You know, and then it was like, oh, they want to replace us. They don't want us. And for me, I think it's not there yet. Like, AI can't replace a human mind. Like, I believe in uncanny valley. Like, visual uncanny valley means like you'll see a robot and there will always be something that tells you that's not a person. I think the same thing exists in written word. And I think that there's sort of just like line that
Yeah.
AI can't cross. And yet, my worry is because of the Netflixication of Hollywood, that eventually, even though it can't cross that line, consumers will decide it's okay. They'll
Good
say
enough?
it'll good enough or not that bad. You know, they'll say, well, I just need something to put on while I'm doing my laundry. This will do, pig. And so to me, the threat of AI is less that it will replace people, but it's almost like Wall-E or Idiocracy, where we'll just become fine with it not replacing people, with it being kind of good enough, kind of not that bad.
I think, but every now and then you'll have the Greta Gerwigs or the Daniels
Every now and then.
make something, and
But
they're
a
like,
lot
wait
fewer.
a minute,
Yeah.
I don't have to settle for Netflix.
Yeah. And I think that's what's going to happen.
Okay.
You know? And so I think at this point, when the strike was starting, there was a lot of like, oh my God, AI is going to replace us. And now I'm like, no, it can't. No, it's not.
Well, what about us? What about you
Yeah.
using AI tools? What do
Yeah.
you think about that?
Well, I'll say I'm a late adopter in all ways. Like
Sure.
I still have an iPhone like 13, you know? So I am always slow to adopt. So I could see AI being helpful, and I have writer friends who are like, I use it to help like generate names for characters, you know?
Right.
And I've been like, a child born in 1985 in this city, what would they be named? You know?
Right.
And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. But I also think there's a period when you're breaking a show called Blue Sky, where you're coming up with a new idea for a show. And I don't know if every showrunner uses this term, but it's
Sure.
something that on the shows I've worked on, we call it Blue Sky, where it's like clear, no clouds, anything can be right?
Sure.
Because you're coming up with it. During that Blue Sky period, you and a bunch of writers in a room talking about a new idea or concept, and there are no rules. I used to have a showrunner who someone would say something about a character, like maybe these two characters would get together and blah, blah, blah. And I would very quickly, just because my mind is kind of quick on the story sense, I would go, well, that won't work because this and this and this, and then that would happen and then that won't work. So we can't do it. And my boss would go, Amy, it's Blue Sky. You don't know what won't work in a vacuum. We have to play. And I would be like, we're wasting our time. Like, don't we want to get to the solution? And then he would be like, you don't know what's going to work. So then we talk about it. We try and make it work. We
Yeah.
do all these things.
Everything goes.
And eventually I'd be right. It wouldn't
Right.
work. But all of the conversations we had to get to realizing that it didn't work opened up all of these new avenues of thought, new ideas for stories, and new ways we can go. And to me, AI is skipping those conversations. So I don't see myself using AI in a writer's room because talking to people
Right.
is what makes all those other pathways. Trying to force something to work that doesn't work is what opens up all this creativity that I never want to lose. Like that, you never know what kernel you're going to come up with because you walk down a broken road
Sure.
that you're going to actually use later to fix something else.
But isn't that the fear that basically executives would use an AI to generate a rough script based on an algorithm of what they said is good?
Yeah.
And then they're going to ask you to fix it.
Yeah, they will. And then they'll pay a day rate and
Yeah.
say, you fix it for a day. Oh, you didn't do it. Next writer. You fix it for a day.
Right.
Oh, you didn't do it. Next writer. You
Right.
know, I'm like, at the end of the day, something will generate out of that process.
Right.
Will we like it? Or will it be Starbucks?
Right.
There is much better coffee than Starbucks, but Starbucks fucking works.
Right.
So to me, I'm like, yes, that is going to happen. That is what they want to happen. It will happen. And we still need Greta.
Right.
We still need Nolan. We still need Ryan Coogler.
Right.
Like we still need people who have original thought
Right.
to balance that out. Because as a society, we might be consuming Doctor Strange and the multiverse with Spider-Man and the X-Men, but we also want Barbie.
Sure.
Both are going to exist. And so that helps me be like maybe a little less scared, quite disappointed, but a little less scared than the future because we're already there.
Right.
There are already 12 Marvel movies and 19 versions of Spider. We're already there. Just sub an AI to write it. We're already there.
We're still making Star Wars stuff
Yeah.
50 years later.
Yeah. So we're kind of already there.
Yeah.
It's just now we're going to be loud about it was a machine.
Right.
As opposed to like, it was 19 writers hired over 12 different pay periods that none of them
I don't think we
cracked
can
it.
stop it from happening. Though.
No. It's happening.
Yeah.
It's here.
Yeah.
So I am not like, I can't correctly say I'm anti-AI. I drink
Okay.
Starbucks too. You
Sure.
know? So I'm like, I'm not anti-Starbucks. I just also like Black and Bold Coffee, which is a Black-owned brand
Right.
that is only for sale in certain areas. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I when I'm in a hurry, I drink Starbucks. When I
Right.
care, I drink Black and Bold.
Yeah.
Every morning I brew Black and Bold. When I'm traveling, I drink Starbucks.
Right.
So I think that's what it's going to become.
Okay, I do. Before we
Yeah.
go too far, I want to make sure we talk about some of the great stuff that you've done. Right.
thank you.
So you talked about
Yeah.
Tribe. You've also have your own production company. Is that right?
Yeah. It's called Super Special.
Yeah.
And the idea came from the opposite of being superficial is being your most authentic self, super
Okay.
special. And we want to tell stories that make people of color feel good, that put us in moments of joy. We can be edgy, we can be subversive, but we're not going to land in a place of loss or defeat. That's something that's really important to me. I think, like, you know, a lot of the tragic stories and trauma porn that are often depicted of people who look like me is still valid art. I just want to live in spaces where we can experience joy,
Yeah.
where we can win. So that's what we do at our company. We have a number of projects in development. Thankfully, pre-strike, we had a deal with HBO. Hopefully, you know, that relationship can continue after the strike, and we'll continue to develop our projects there. And then in features, we have different pathways we have different relationships with different other production companies in Hollywood where we're developing different projects. I'm writing some original things too that I'm really excited about. So.
Awesome. Well, I think it's really exciting. I think, you know, doing your own production company and is really cool. Do you feel responsibility to support women and people of color and all of that as well?
I mean, responsibility is a funny word. Like, it is a responsibility, but I sometimes, I kind of call it a beautiful burden, because I'm sort of like, yeah, it's my responsibility, but it's also all I care about. So
Right.
I'm like, it's, I don't believe in a future where there's like only Black content. Like, I want our content to look like our world.
Sure.
I want to see everyone represented. And all of my stories involve quite multicultural worlds, because that's how I was raised. That's the environment I grew up in. That's my friend circle. So to me, it's something that I don't have to make a conscious effort to do, because
Right.
it's just who I am. So yes, a responsibility in that sometimes other projects come my way that don't involve things
Sure.
that I am passionate about, and therefore I'm like, this is a great idea, but it's just not for me. Like, I'm
Right.
not the writer for this. And it feels bad sometimes to say no to things that I like,
Sure.
but just don't need me, you
Right.
know? And I want to write things that need me. I want to write characters that couldn't have life breathed into them without me.
Yeah.
And that comes from writing my own unique experience and directing that too, like working with actors who I want to direct to portray those unique experiences as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great. I mean, I love us. Watching Insecure is really wonderful, because to me, I'm a white male, right?
Yeah.
And so being opening the door for me to see what it's like to be a Black woman
Yeah.
and making it super funny.
Thanks.
You know, I love a good vagina joke. It's really good. but yeah, I love what you've done, and being able to opportunity, because, you know, sometimes some people feel like they only want to see their perspective.
Yeah.
And I think it's great for it to be open on something like HBO for you to see someone else's perspective, right?
Yeah, and to tell a universal story.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, Insecure is about a girl who is turning 30 and having imposter syndrome
Yep.
and growing pains and like midlife or quarter life crisis shit, you know, like, should I stay with this man? Should I stay in this job? Like,
Yeah.
that's very relatable.
Very.
She just looks different and has some, slang that some of the HBO audience was new to them, you know?
Absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right. It's like, oh, wait, she is just like me.
Yeah. That's what I love.
Yeah.
Just like when I watch, you know, Curb Your Enthusiasm,
Right.
like Issa has said this, where it's like you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm and it's like, I love these stories. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, sometimes I feel like Larry David, you know,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just like, that's great.
Yeah.
It's like, there's so many shows like that. I love shows that make it effortless, that it's like about a core human emotion that anyone can relate to. And now we're just going to sprinkle it with some real things, some real texture that makes it specific. And through that specificity, actually breed a universal new language. of
Yes.
experience, you know?
Awesome. Okay, now before we go, I do want to have you talk about your podcast you also have as well. And that's gotten a lot of success. So you're a podcaster too.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So another thing bred out of the pandemic, my friend Grace Edwards and I, we both were writers on Insecure. And when Insecure was ending, it was like the height of the pandemic. And it was like, how do we do something, where we're working together again? But then also it felt like every week there was more bad news. You know, it was just like so many terrible things happening in the world. And one day she said to me, I think she was like, you're my antidote. I feel like talking to you makes me feel better about the world. And I was like, you're my antidote. Like literally having this community, this space to be like, oh, the world is shit. The world is a dumpster fire. How do we get better? Really just helped us. And we were like, is this a thing? Is this a thing? And we kind of realized it was, like, to be able to say, like, okay, what's our antidote this week? And we made it more intentional. Like, we actually made an effort to say every week we have to do something that is selfishly just for us, just self-care, that isn't about work, that is just about feeling good, and share it with each other and have guests on to talk about their antidotes too. So yeah, that's where the antidote was bred. Product of APM Studios. We wrapped season 1 a couple months ago. Really proud of how it turned out. 40 episodes. So go back and listen.
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of really great guests, from Tracy Ellis Ross to Bowen Yang. Yes, exactly. It's like really great guests. So all talking about their antidotes.
That's so awesome. Well, that was really wonderful. And Amy, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and for your amazing success, and for being here in Kaga City to talk about all this stuff, and being able to share your story is really a passionate thing. I'm really grateful. I'm very excited about where you go from here. I have a feeling that you are not only going to be very successful, but you're going to help a lot of people be successful as well. So
thank you. That is my only hope, is to, you know, build bridges for future storytellers. That's the thing that really makes my heart beat. So I hope you are right. Your lips to God's ears, as we say in the South.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.